Welcome to the Lone Red Seat off-season show. The Lone Red Seat is the ultimate Red Sox blog. Joining me today, we have our other baseball expert, Paul Berthollet.
Thank you so much for having me.
We got a lot to get to today in a short amount of time. So we're going to review the Red Sox season. We're going to review their off-season needs, basically their signing of a new chief of baseball operations, some roster moves that they have to get to. Going to get to winter meetings and discuss that, like pace of play, things like that are going to happen during this offseason. So coming off of a 2018 World Series win where they had the best regular season in franchise history, Red Sox won 108 games that year, and this year they failed to make the playoffs for the first time since 2015, which, if you ask me, was quite disappointing because if you look at their roster, the two teams were basically the same, minus maybe two major players in Joe Kelly and their closer, Craig Kimbrell. But, you know, the Red Sox, they fired Dave Dombrowski on September 9th. They didn't even let him finish out the season just because they knew that the team was all but mathematically eliminated. They let Eddie Romero fill in that position until October 28th. And that was when they announced that they were taking Chaim Bloom from Tampa Bay Rays, their vice president of baseball operations, and they were going to appoint him to their position of chief baseball operations. What are your thoughts on that? Like, do you think that's a good signing? I mean, I know he's 36, so he's young. He's been in the Rays organization for 15 years. He started there as an intern, and he worked his way up to their vice president of operations. But once again, what are your thoughts on that signing?
I think it's an excellent signing. He's a young guy, a lot of credentials, like you said, VP of baseball operations. He's worked for the Rays for a long time, so he's familiar with how to structure a roster and how we need to work with different teams. And he's also a scout too, so he knows how to develop and produce talent. The big thing with me is, with Chaim Bloom, is the pitching. Tampa Bay Rays always produce great pitching, and we see it every single year. It started off with like David Price, James Shields, Jacob Odorizzi, moved on to like last year's Cy Young Award winner Blake Snell, and they're still developing great pitching. Chaim Bloom was a big part of that. I think that's going to really help the Red Sox too, because if you look at the Red Sox pitching development, it hasn't been that good. You're looking at a lot of guys in the roster right now. Chris Sale, they got him via trade. David Price, they got him via signing. So, like, a lot of the guys they haven't developed, and I don't think that's great. I think you really need to develop good pitching, and I think he's going to help that out. And plus, the Rays organization really knows how to step up their game in analytics, and I think he knows a lot on the analytics side, and I think he knows how to separate the analytics from the actual mindset of the game and really combine them to create a great atmosphere for the Red Sox. So I think this is an excellent signing for them. I think it will really help. I think they need a young guy, just like we saw with Theo Epstein when they signed him in 2003. He really turned that franchise around and created a dynasty for the Red Sox, and I think Chaim Bloom will do the same thing. He's got a lot of resources. I know he has to cut a few dollars. You know, we're going to talk about the Mookie Betts situation later, but I think it's a great signing, and I think they'll do well with it.
You brought up a good point. I heard you mention, like, he's good with developing players, and I think that that's something that this team's really going to need going forward with the way that the farm system was really depleted through having Dave Dombrowski here for a few years. You know, he gave away so many prospects in the Chris Sale trade, in the Craig Kimbrell trade. He did a lot to kind of take away from the farm system without trying to rebuild that, and I think what Chaim Bloom's going to do, like you said, with developing players is going to be beneficial because you're going to need more of a farm system, especially with a relocation. You want to have a good team that's going to be moving to Worcester within the next 2 years. You want to have good players and players that are going to get fans to come out to those games.
I also think it's a good mix too because he worked in a small market with Tampa Bay. Now he has the money to really go out and get those big free agents. In Tampa Bay, he couldn't do that. He had to focus solely on development. So he knows how to develop players, and now you add the money value to his team and to his credentials. I think he'll be fine and he'll do a great job.
So moving on from Chaim Bloom, but kind of sticking with that topic, he's got a lot of roster moves he's going to have to make. Obviously, this past week, November 4th, J.D. Martinez opted into another year in his contract. So with the Red Sox main goal this offseason to kind of slash their payroll, by having that extra $20 million that JD is going to be getting paid, I think what's going to happen with Mookie Betts, there's a lot of questions with that. I think JD Martinez being here is going to be great for this team because in his 2 seasons so far with the Red Sox, in 2018 he batted .330 with 43 home runs and 130 RBIs, and really followed that up with a pretty similar campaign in 2019 where he batted .305 with still 38 home runs and I think he had 105 RBIs.
105 RBIs.
So, he's having productive seasons, especially being a designated hitter. That's something that the team needs being in the American League. In the past few years, ever since David Ortiz retired, they'd had a void the first couple years. They tried to fill it with Hanley Ramirez, but I think finding JD Martinez to have that position is going to help them because they're not trying to find someone from the inside out. Now they have someone. But having JD Martinez and paying him more than $20 million a year with the effort to try and cut the payroll back, I think that's going to really affect what happens with Mookie Betts. With Mookie Betts, he's going into the final year of his contract, and he's kind of made it sound like he doesn't want to be here in the future. So I think with Chaim Bloom, one of his biggest tasks this offseason or throughout next season will be to kind of find a home for him where he can get some prospects and find a way to make this Mookie Betts deal work. What do you think about that?
I mean, I think they need to trade him. I feel like Mookie Betts, he's made it known that he doesn't want to be here. And for the next season, he doesn't want to sign a long-term contract. He said that this year he said that. And I just feel like you need to trade him, get some value for him. I know Atlanta is a big option for Mookie Betts. I know they have some really good prospects. Obviously, the Red Sox need pitching prospects. So Ian Anderson, who's one of the Braves' top pitching prospects, you can get him. Or you can get Christian Pache. He's an outfield prospect, the third best outfield prospect in the game. He's great athleticism. You can stick him out in center field if you decide to move on from Jackie Bradley, which they've made that a possibility. So that could happen. But obviously, I know the JD coming back, that's a huge move for the Red Sox. Like you said, 330, 43 home runs, 130 RBIs. Then the next year, 306, 36 home runs, 105 RBIs. So really, he's been one of the best hitters in baseball over the last couple of years, and I think they really need that offense. I mean, that showed in 2017 when they lost David Ortiz, and they didn't really have that power hitter. And I think JD Martinez really helped out the whole line and stretched it out. And I think JD Martinez being back should be a great help. He's a great mentor. As he said, Mookie Betts said he's like the best mentor in the game. He really knows how to hit. He's a sense of hitting, and I think he'll be a hitting coach in the future. But right now, I think he's going to be the top hitter in the American League. I thought he was going to opt out, coming off another monster year. I thought he was going to get more money. Obviously, the years would have been a little bit shorter because they're not giving out long-term deals, and he's over 30 years old. But I'm happy he's back. But I think it will be a good move. But I don't know. I feel like Mookie Betts is going to get traded, and the value's there for him. They want a massive haul for Mookie Betts, even though it's only for 1 year. But he's one of the top players in the game. And the other thing I'm looking at this is I'm looking at the long-term contracts that have been signed over the last decade. You look at Albert Pujols, Josh Hamilton, Manny Machado, Bryce Harper, like all these big-time contracts you're giving to one player can really kind of mess up your financial structure and your whole payroll. So maybe moving on from Mookie Betts and filling in the needs in other areas will be a big help. Because you look at Albert Pujols, he started to deteriorate once he went to Los Angeles. Josh Hamilton was just a massive disaster. And then Robinson Cano is another one. He wasn't as good. I know he had a couple good years, but like, it's not that big time player. So I'd rather sign players to smaller contracts with more value given into each year. But Mookie Betts is going to want that huge contract, which he deserves. He's one of the top players in the game. But I feel like they need to move on. He doesn't want to come back and just let go. You won a World Series last year. Just let go and move on from him. Get some good value because you can get 2 good prospects who have 6 years of control each. So you basically, let's just say 2 good prospects, 6 years each. That's 12 years for 2 players instead of 1 year Mookie Betts. So I think that would be a great trade for them. And I feel like you need to move on from Mookie Betts this year.
Right, and I think especially with the fact that they are trying to cut the payroll back so much, they're not going to be able to justify paying him a contract with the likes of Bryce Harper and Manny Machado, which are north of $30 million a year for 10, 11 years. It's just something that the Red Sox are not inclined to do at this point in time with looking to slash their payroll. And kind of speaking on the same thing with slashing the payroll, Rick Porcello's contract is up. And I know he's kind of made it a point that he doesn't think he's going to be returning. And there's still a plethora of other players on the team, the current roster from 2019, that are not technically under contract next year where they become free agents. I look at Sandy Leon, I look at Christian Vasquez, I look at Brock Holt.
Mitch Moreland.
So, those are key guys that really helped you win a World Series just over a year ago in 2018. But you're looking at these guys now, especially with Rick Porcello, who's going to make a good amount of money because he's won a Cy Young here. He's proven that he can go out there and do what he has to do to help this team win. But you're also trying to bolster your bullpen because, let's face it, this past year that bullpen was a disaster. You look at the team, they had 27 blown saves on the season. If you had someone to go in and be a closer, you take away, let's say, half of those games, there's a possibility that this team makes the playoffs. So I just want to know your thoughts on that before we kind of transition.
See, for me, I think move on from Rick Porcello, obviously, because they just had him with a $20 million contract. You get that off the books. Last year, he wasn't effective, didn't do well. I know he won the Cy Young 2016, but he's not been effective the last couple of years. I think you just need to move on and cut that loss out of your payroll. But dealing with the bullpen, 27 blown saves is not good. You can't win with 27 saves. That's why a big reason why they didn't make the postseason. But obviously, the thing that's going to keep arising is the Craig Kimball situation, how they didn't re-sign him. I wasn't a big fan of signing Craig Kimball because of the money situation, but I think they should go out and get a low-cost closer. Obviously, Will Smith already is off the market. He just signed the Atlanta Braves for a 3-year, $39 million contract. He was linked to the Red Sox. I think they need a good left-handed bullpen arm, but he is off the books. He's in Atlanta. But I think they need to go out and get a low-cost bullpen arm. I know they also been linked to Kirby Yates for a trade, but he is on San Diego, and they're looking to contend next year with that loaded farm system and good core in the center. But I also think another situation that really has kind of messed up the payroll was the Nathan Eovaldi one. They were kind of happy that he did well in the postseason, and they gave him a huge contract. And I was saying, sign Charlie Morton, sign or Anibal Sanchez to your rotation. But they decided to go after Nathan Eovaldi for, I think it was $17 million a year.
Right,
for 4 years. For 4 years, when you could have gotten Charlie Morton for 2 years and $15 a year, and he was third in the Cy Young, and Anibal Sanchez had a good year, and now he's a World Series champion. So really, it's been the pitching for the Red Sox, and they need to go out and get low-cost guys that can really help them. I know they've talked about cutting the payroll via David Price, seeing if another team wants to trade for him, but you have to cut or eat a lot of his money, which is a huge issue because you don't want to pay, let's just say, $20 million just for him not to play. And Chris Sale, he's shown that he can pitch well, but he hasn't been healthy. And I know you want to touch base on Chris Sale and how he's doing.
Yeah, so I was actually going to ask you, bring that up. Chris Sale got shut down in August, the very beginning of August, and they didn't let him pitch for the rest of the season. With an elbow injury, there was a scare that he may need Tommy Johns. They had to wait for the inflammation to go down before they could make that decision. And then they said, no, we don't actually have to do the Tommy Johns, so they shut him down completely for the rest of the year. Do you think that he will return to form and be healthy again next year, given that an elbow injury is substantial, especially for a pitcher? And when there is a scare that comes up saying he may need Tommy Johns and they don't go through with that, is that something that worries you going into next year, thinking he may go out and pitch 2 starts in April and then be shut down again and he needs Tommy Johns, where now he's under contract for a couple more years. If he goes out there and has Tommy Johns again, that shuts him down for all of next year and potentially to open up the season the following year, as most Tommy Johns cases are basically 18 months before you can return. So I just want to know what you think about that, and if you think he will be able to come back healthy, given that he's been resting since August.
I'm going to start off going to be definitely worried about it because, like always, elbow issues with pitchers are a huge cause of concern. But I feel like he'll be pretty healthy to start off the year. I think they should limit his innings. I know they tried to last year, and I know at the beginning of the season he was like throwing, I think he was throwing 89, 90. He wasn't doing well. He was just trying to save up his arm, but obviously that didn't work out because he got injured again at the end of the year. So I think he should be healthy. You know, he still struck out over 200 batters this year. So he still was a strikeout machine. It's just the ERA and the home runs that he gave up really didn't help his cause. I think he pitched a lot better than his ERA showed, but I think he'll be fine for next year. Obviously, elbow issues are a huge cause of concern, like I said before. But Tanaka, Masahiro Tanaka for the Yankees, he's had Tommy John for like 4 years, and he hasn't had it yet. And he's pitched well, especially in the postseason too. So maybe Chris Sale can stay healthy, and it's obviously going to be a problem for them if he can't pitch and he has Tommy John because of this new contract he just signed with $25 million a year.
Right, and they'll end up eating that money. It's like just paying for nobody.
Yeah, it's gonna be interesting. Plus, he's not getting any younger, so obviously it's gonna be an issue. But I think he'll be fine. You know, he's a trooper. He knows how to go out there and be a professional and pitch well.
Another thing I want to ask, because we mentioned both David Price and David Price and Chris Sale. What I wanted to ask you was, with winter meetings coming up, and each year it seems like pace of play becomes such an issue. You go back and you look at Chris Sale went out and threw a baseball game of 2 hours and 16 minutes in August this year, but David Price has gone out and thrown games that have lasted more than 4.5 hours, especially with that London series. Is there going to be something implemented to kind of help pace of play? Like, I know they've tried to do a pitch clock where pitchers have 15 seconds between pitches, or it's going to tack on a ball. They've come up with all these crazy scenarios that they've talked about, they've speculated on. Do you think that something will be put into place to kind of help get the average game time down, from 3 hours and 20 minutes back down to maybe 3 hours this year?
So they got a few things going on. I also have an opinion of myself what they should do, but the pitch clock obviously is a huge talking point. They've already put that in the minor leagues, AAA, AA, and it's really worked. I know when they put it in 2015, the games averaged 243, and they've continually and progressively gone down. So it's been like 243, 240, 239, and then it's dropped down to 229 in 2017. So it's going down each year, which is good because, to be honest, baseball is not as popular of a sport as it was before. Basketball and football really taking over. So I think people don't want to just go to a baseball game and stay there for 4 hours. They want to enjoy the experience. That's what they want. It's all about the experience. They don't care about the game. They want to just focus on the atmosphere. And I think if you cut down the games, that'll be a huge help. Obviously, the replays that really hasn't helped either. They need to have a better system for that, because there are some replay calls where it's like, he's out, you can tell he's out, but they're taking 5 minutes to make a call.
10 minutes out of a game to make that decision, which, that tacks on 10 minutes to that game that was already over 3.5 hours, where now you're looking at 3 hours and 40 minutes, which a lot of people don't have time to sit down and watch that. And, especially with most games happening during weeknights and being at 7 o'clock, people who have to get up the next morning to go to work, they're not going to want to stay up until 10:30, 11 o'clock, and even past that, just to watch a regular season baseball game in June. Obviously, the postseason's a little bit different because those games have a lot more weight to them. But to your point, I think the video review definitely needs some sort of fixing, because I think it is a flawed system right now.
Yes, absolutely. And like you said, in the postseason, it's at least televised, at least watch postseason series, a World Series a series of all time. And so I think baseball is kind of taking the back seat, looking at other sports, and they really need to find a way to make the game shorter to have people watch. Because football, you got action every single play. They don't care if it's 3 hours. Baseball, it's dragging along. No one wants to watch 3 hours of an actual baseball game. But for me, I think the biggest thing for me is the bullpen. Because, when you have a bullpen pitcher warming up in the bullpen, he's throwing like 30 pitches, getting ready. But then they have him take warm-up pitches when he's off the mound. So that wastes 3 minutes per bullpen arm. And in this day and age where everyone's going to the bullpen and using more bullpen arms, that's a lot of time. So maybe cut down on the amount of pitches he throws. I know they put a clock on how many on the amount of pitches he throws out of when he comes out of the bullpen, but maybe just cut that out because like they're throwing in the bullpen. They don't need to get used to the mound. I know some people like to say, "Oh, I want to like dig into the dirt a little bit and get situated," but I don't think they need that. I think they'll be just fine, and I think that will cut off a huge amount of time.
All right, well, that really wraps up our show for today. Paul, I want to thank you for being here. It's, as always, helpful to have such good baseball insight with me to kind of break down the Red Sox and their offseason. So, once again, thank you for being here. And that's all the time we have this week. Tune in next time for our next offseason edition of the Lone Red Seat. Thank you.